Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari
Lucky because we have a few Prabhupada disciples who are joining us today and who are going to speak to us a little bit about their experiences in the early days of ISKCON. So first up, we're going to have Her Grace Mother Rukmavati. She joined ISKCON, she met the devotees around Christmas time in '72, and she took initiation in the first, possibly the first ever Brahmacharini in ISKCON Brisbane. So she's an absolute pioneer of this community. And I'm personally really looking forward to hearing from her. And I would like us all to give her a big, warm Brisbane welcome with 3 big Haribo. Haribo! Haribo! Haribo!
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. Things coming up, so we'll see how we go. But it's sort of a pretty serious day, and because of that, I wanted to speak not just necessarily about some pastimes of Srila Prabhupada that I experienced, but I wanted to put them in context of tattva. Because Prabhupada used to say many times, religiosity without philosophy is sentiment or fanaticism. So it's one thing for me to sit here and tell my stories about Srila Prabhupada, but it's also good to understand them not from the point of view of sentimentality or fanaticism, but 2 weeks she had been a devotee and she took initiation. So our Guru Varga is that we've just had Govardhan Puja, and as you probably heard, whoever gave the lecture of Govardhan Puja, he may have mentioned how Giriraj Govardhan is known as Haridas Vaya. Now, these were words that were spoken by Srimati Radhika, who was in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's known as Haridas Vaya. Yudhisthira, King Yudhisthira, Uddhava, Krishna's friend Uddhava, they're known as Haridas. But only Giriraj Govardhan is known as Haridas Varya, the best of the Haridasis. And this is something that's really unique to our Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya and unique to our gurus, that they are, if you look at any sort of so-called modern guru, they're not in Mumbai, in Bombay, pretty sure it's there. He gave a series of lectures in Vrindavan, in Mumbai, then Kolkata. And Srila Prabhupada talks about these two words, praptasya kalina. So this is actually this line, this last line. And it's at first, in the beginning. And the praptasya means to obtain or to get the authority of something. And what is the Guru obtaining? This is Prabhupada speaking, and he's saying, what is the Guru obtaining? He's obtaining the Guru, the mercy of his spiritual master. So, unless you have the mercy of your spiritual master, but I just wanted to impress upon you all the importance of taking initiation. It affects everything. You can't. I have a very nice quote from Srila Guru Govinda Maharaj here about the holy name and the potency of the holy name, and how you can only receive the and but when I went up to Srila Prabhupada, it was held in Glebe in Sydney. Now Glebe now is a very posh photo, if anyone wants to see. And there were 4 taking second initiation. I took my beads off Srila Prabhupada and commit myself to chanting 16 rounds a day, at least 16 rounds a day, and following the 4 regulated principles. I bowed it down to everything to do with the Supreme Lord is personal. And Prabhupada came nirvasesha sunyavadi to get rid of impersonalism and voidism. Because even though we don't think we're impersonalists or voidists, actually there's so much there of that in our heart. And by saying, just trying to follow this one instruction, and you have to have some reference. Nobody can just go and, have a conversation. There has to be reference there. Oh, this is so-and-so from so-and-so, from this group and blah, blah, blah. So in the same way, when we say our pranam mantra, we're introducing ourselves to the deity, to a Vaishnava, to whoever. We're introducing ourselves. And
Mother Ambika, also a Prabhupada disciple, she took initiation in April in 72. Actually, both Mother Rukmavati and Mother Ambika are. I owe a huge debt to them because when I was studying in the Gurukul at New Govardhan, it was the 2 of them that actually arranged for me to go to Vrindavan and study there. And if it wasn't for them, my entire life could have turned out completely differently. So I owe you both a big debt of gratitude. And of course, we also want to acknowledge Yadavendra Prabhu, who's come and joined us today, another one of our devotees from Brisbane for many, many years, many decades actually. Who here, put your hand up if you've seen the red mridanga that we have at the temple. So that mridanga was donated by Prabhu back in, I think, 1993. So he's been a member of our community for a very, very long time. Thank you, Prabhu, for coming.
2 photos here of the actual devotees who are around the choir. You want to have a look?
I'm sorry, you go down only like a couple of hours away, but I don't seem to make it up here very often. But really appreciate that you have invited us to come and speak. So, somehow or another, we were all blessed to have Srila Prabhupada as our spiritual master. And it's like every day, see and serve and be around Srila Prabhupada is such a wonderful thing and such a blessing. So I'd like to talk about the first time of seeing Srila Prabhupada, because pretty much for everybody, the first time they saw Srila Prabhupada after writing You just felt such a transformation just to see Srila Prabhupada. For a start, Srila Prabhupada was so golden and so effulgent. When you first saw him, it was like the sun walked into the room. And it didn't matter. And then suddenly we get a telegram that Prabhupada was coming, but nobody made it to the airport. We were all still painting, and suddenly Hari saw yelled out, "Prabhupada's here!" And everybody went into shock. And we ran out on the street and hit the bitumen on the street, and it was just the most wonderful thing. You just felt like Srila Prabhupada floated along like a golden genie. Oh, it was so fun. And as it happens, the temple president was Mahanananda, and he was so sort of taken aback and shocked that he just embraced Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada didn't embrace people usually, but Srila Prabhupada just stood there very patiently and lovingly. It was very nice. And then we went, we had a double-decker bus, and so Srila Prabhupada, all the devotees accompanied Srila Prabhupada around, and it was so jolly, so sort of happy to see everything. And when he saw our double-decker bus, which had Hare Krishna movement, the positive alternative on it. So Srila Prabhupada went up the back stairs and looked around the bus and looked downstairs, and he said, "I could live on this." And then when we went inside to see Radha Gopinath, you must have heard the story that Srila Prabhupada, when he came in 1971, I wasn't there, they were very ill prepared. They didn't have a clue. Prabhupada said, "Where are the garlands?" And they're like, "Garlands?" So they're rushing up to try and pick flowers and make some garlands. They didn't know anything. But one thing was that they were told by Srila Prabhupada, you have to have 6 offerings of bhoga every day. So quickly they ran up early and said, "What's the recipe for bhoga? We don't know how to cook it." So, very ill prepared. And Srila Prabhupada kind of, did the installation of Sri Radha Gopinath. So when he came back in 1972, and we had this brilliant genius by Barbie, who was like 20 men rolled into one Mataji. Because we were all malechas. You please train these malechas within the heart how to look after you, he said, and I see that he has done that. So it was very nice. And on a personal note too, I was kind of really impressed because in those days, we didn't understand about service to Vaishnavas. I mean, you admire Prabhu as you get to shake someone up. I came into the temple room and saw the views, and in such a personal way, I was like dumbstruck, the way he said, "Oh, how are you? How is your pregnancy going? Have you been sick?" And he was just talking so like just to a friend, and I couldn't believe it. Of course, since then we learned about the importance of devotees, but at that time it was a bit of an eye-opener for me. Vaibhavi had a studio, and it was, if you look at those photos, in the back of the house, there was a veranda of us and Vaibhavi. And we slept on a veranda. There was no door. There was just some screen that was there. So Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so I'm going to go to Bombay now because in January 74, I moved to Bombay because at that time and not one was from the same place. It was very international. Anyway, so Srila Prabhupada was quite different in Bombay to how he was in Australia. For a start, he never wore a kurta. He was so relaxed. It was just, for me, it was like, I was so surprised because in Australia he was more formal, and you couldn't go and see him in his rooms or anything. But in Bombay, he was very different, very just sort of comfortable and relaxed, and Vrindavan is his home. Vrindavan is my home, Mayapur is my place of worship, and Bombay is my office. So, okay. So when Srila Prabhupada, when any guests, we've had darshans on the roof, you might have seen the footage. Every day you could come. Sometimes you come and there'd be nobody there, maybe, someone fanning Srila Prabhupada, you just come and see him come. And Srila Prabhupada was always so polite and respectful. Oh, hey, Betsy, okay. He would always be really welcoming to them. But it did not take long. Srila Prabhupada had this art of turning the conversation to Krishna very quickly, and then he would swallow up. So when we would be in those darshans, or even with Srila Prabhupada any time, but especially I noticed in the darshans, you might be at loggerheads with somebody, you go into those darshans, and suddenly you just felt like, this is the spiritual world, because Srila Prabhupada was there, and Srila Prabhupada is an integral part of the spiritual world, and you just felt that. And all these nonsense things that you might have, bodily concept, everything, it just sort of slipped away. So I'd like to say the Hare Krishna land project was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. There was a builder who was kind of not so much a devotee until Prabhupada sort of pushed him into the devotional mood. His name was Mr. Shetty. So Mr. Shetty was an engineer, and he did fantastic work on Hare Krishna land. For a start, he was building a third floor. There were all these tenants' houses, seven maybe, and there were tenants on both sides and then upstairs. So he built another floor so that the devotees could live on the top floor, and Srila Prabhupada also was staying in her mind. At the same time they were trying to buy land in Michael, what to speak of all around the world. How one man could, it's just not possible for one man to do what Srila Prabhupada did. But, he was so expert in everything he did. I don't know if any of you have read the book, I'll Build You a Temple, the story of Bombay, because Srila Prabhupada promised Radharasa Bihari, I'll build you a temple. And the whole saga of Hare Krishna land, and how he dealt with Mr. Nair, and how, for instance, in Vrindavan, on one particular day, and Prabhupada's life was like this, it was so full of things. If any of you have read Chasing the Rhinos with the Swami, Shyama Sundar's book, which is lovely, wonderful pastimes. One time Srila Prabhupada was on, and I think there were like 6 different rooms. At the same time, the people from Radha Damodar came to harass them about this. Prabhupada diffused the situation, so he had some devotees in one of the rooms. He sent them to another room. He sent the land, the Hare Krishna, the land that the wonderful and everything he did. So, and also he was very present with whomever he met. He was very, very present. Just wondering about the time. Oh, another thing with Srila Prabhupada, if you've watched the Prabhupada Memories, which I can recommend, they're just wonderful, pretty much everybody will tell you that Srila Prabhupada knew what you were thinking. It was like absolutely amazing. I've got a couple of real examples for you. One time Srila Prabhupada went on his morning walk. One time when he went on his morning walk, we were there with our mops and buckets and things ready to go. We got down and and Prabhupada said, all glory to the devotees. That's so nice. Anyway, one time he came back from the morning walk and I was standing at the kitchen and Prabhupada was walking right past around to the temple. And when he got to it, and another time on Devahuti, and how she became so thin and wasted that she was just serving her husband. She didn't care if she looked, how she looked. He wasn't after fine clothes and stuff. And there was me in that particular lecture. The life members had bought all these saris, and I ended up with the first silk sari I ever had in my whole life. So I thought I was it was red. And I was pretty happy because when it's another time I probably, and then another time I was used to make Prabhupada's vases and take them up at 11 o'clock to his rooms, and he would never be there because that's when he was having his massage on the roof. So I went up at 11 o'clock. Oh, this day I was thinking, oh, Prabhupada doesn't even know who I am. You know, he's got all these Malika and Dada Shakti cooking for him and doesn't know who I am. Anyway, I went up with these 2 vases just to put them like another to another to another. As the fresh garland from Srila Prabhupada from that morning, he would take it when he came up to his rooms. He would take off the garland from when he'd given class and he would put it around the picture of his wife. And he leant down to his desk and he gave me the fresh garland from his desk. So I was very, very happy. And I thought, I'm never going to think that again. Because Prabhupada loved us all, you know, big or small. And he said that to Gurudas on the train one time when Gurudas was feeling rather special. He said, I love all my disciples equally. And he was very frail. So he wasn't coming down, no classes, nobody got to see him. Giriraj and a few people could go and speak to him. Other than that, nobody got to see Srila Prabhupada at this time because he was too sick. So, very wealthy, industrious, but very pious, as most of them were. And he came to see Srila Prabhupada, and I met him. So, I can't even remember if the lifts were finished at that time, but Srila Prabhupada came up, and there was like this slushy stuff on top of the marble. But there was one area of the room that was a little higher. It was so fantastic. It was so mind-blowing for me. I thought 2 things at that time, that Krishna's teaching me 2 lessons. First of all, no matter what fulgent preacher preaching like anything, and yet the body is like, so frail and weak and thin. He hadn't been eating for so long. It was like impossible. The 2 things didn't go together, so I realised, I kind of had that realisation. We are absolutely not, whatever our body's going through, that's not us. And so, I just felt very honoured to be able to witness that, Srila Prabhupada preaching like that in such a state. In Vrindavan, in 1977, in November, of course, Srila Prabhupada came to leave his body. Various GBC members, etc., were coming and going. And the devotees, they didn't actually get to see Srila Prabhupada very much. They would take him out on a palanquin. He had to be carried on a palanquin. And they would take him around the temple. And then they would sit him under the tamal tree that's in the temple. So Srila Prabhupada would sit there with the devotees, and he was too weak to talk, maybe a few words to someone, but then they would have kirtan. And Srila Prabhupada, he may clap. He was very weak. He couldn't really even clap much, but sometimes he would clap. And then they would take him back to his room. So it was a very somber mood. Now, I wasn't there. We actually got tickets to go, but then we were told the 14th of November. Of course, he'd been monitored by various, doctors and this, that and the other, but there was one Kaviraj that had been kind of taking care of Srila Prabhupada. At that time, before, there were only just a small group of kirtaniers doing very soft kirtan in Srila Prabhupada's room. There were a few devotees taking care, some of them coming, some of them going to their different zones. This has been going on for a few weeks. But the general devotees did not get to see Srila Prabhupada. So once the Kaviraj had told the devotees that Srila Prabhupada will leave on this day. So that was in the morning. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada's doors were thrown open. All the women could come in, all the devotees could come in. And there was kirtan around Srila Prabhupada's bed. Srila Prabhupada was not sort of responding at that time. He was in Samadhi all that day. But the devotees were very desperate, because nobody at that time, you can ask anybody, nobody could imagine this movement or the world without Srila Prabhupada. It couldn't be, because Srila Prabhupada was our everything. He guided everybody by letter, by through his instruction, everything. So everything was very, Prabhupada was integral to everything. And suddenly, we get this message, the devotees got the message that Srila Prabhupada was going to leave. So it was very heart-rending for all the devotees, heart-rending. They were actually, some devotees were like massaging Srila Prabhupada on the head. There were other devotees massaging his feet. The devotees were having kirtan. Kirtan went on all day in Srila Prabhupada's rooms. And it was a very intense, prayerful, fearful. Everyone was fearful. What will happen when Srila Prabhupada goes? Nobody could imagine the movement going on without Srila Prabhupada. So there were a lot of emotions running high at that time in Srila Prabhupada's room. And that went on all through the day. And, the devotees couldn't even really talk to each other about it, because it was such a... their hearts were so kind of caught up in these feelings for Srila Prabhupada, and the feelings of fear and desperation not to let Srila Prabhupada go. But, they could understand by logic, but they couldn't understand by their heart that they had to let Srila Prabhupada go. So, actually, as it became more and more intense, and Srila Prabhupada, we know he left by the mouth, the soul left by the friends over there. There were two friends in the room, and they told me that there were devotees smashing their heads on the walls. They were just on the ground, some of them crying. There was so much emotion in that room, and devotees just didn't really know how to express that emotion, because they just couldn't imagine Srila Prabhupada not being there. So then Srila Prabhupada's body was bathed, and he was taken into the temple, and they sat, this is the part that always amazed me, they sat Srila Prabhupada on the Vyasasan, Srila Prabhupada's body, and they did Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada's body. Can you imagine? And then Srila Prabhupada was taken up the next day all around Vrindavan to all the 7 temples, and people were just throwing themselves in front of Srila Prabhupada's palanquin, and there was even the big buses were crying and throwing flowers, and all through the planetary systems. Srila Prabhupada was going back to Goloka Vrindavan. So all the residents from all the higher planets, just imagine them throwing flowers and dancing and singing and celebrating Srila Prabhupada going back to the spiritual world. It's just a wonderful kind of meditation that we lost Srila Prabhupada, but they gained, they got to give accolades to the person who'd done what nobody else could do, which is spread Krishna consciousness to the Malechas, in the West. It was a miracle. So he was taken back, and there must have been so much glorification of Srila Prabhupada, and then of course he's reunited with his eternal Lord, and all the devotees, Srimati Radharani and all the devotees in Goloka Vrindavan.
So, thank you so much for this opportunity. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
So much to both Mother Rukmavati and Mother Ambika for coming and sharing their knowledge, their experience with Srila Prabhupada. We're now going to do Pushpanjali, so if everybody could please come forward.
Srila Prabhupada 3 times. So please repeat the prayers after me. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Pitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupah kada mahyam Dadati swapadantikam padakamalam Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Aine Prabhave Namaha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Saktakam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jaitam Surutau Pango Mamamandamatergati Mat Sarvasvamano Smarami Srimanarasarasarambhi Vamsi Vatatastikaha Karshana Venu Swaner Gopi Gopinatha Shriyestunaha Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Kesha Puspanjali. Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Namah Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta. Swamine iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. Paschatya Desha Tarine. Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Vande Guru Sri
Bande Guru She Tarara Vendam Bande Guru Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Shishimad His Vangesh, Lamti Siddhanta Srila Maharaj Prabhupada ki, Ananta Gauri Vaishnavinda ki, Namacharya Srila Das Thakur ki, Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Radha Kunda Shyama Kunda Giri Govardhana ki, Rajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Advait Mayapur Dham ki, Purushottam Kshetri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Namayam Namay ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki, Samaveta Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki.
A string of prayers followed by Dhammadarastakam. But just before we do that, and of course followed by Srila Prabhupada's garlands for Mangaladi, by Ananga Mohini, Srila Prabhupada's garlands for Morning Guru Puja is still available. So if
श्रीरामैवदामोदरं भक्तिभाजाघोषं निमत्यन्तं लक्षापयम्